I arrived at my childhood home after a 6-hour flight, exhausted but excited to reconnect with family for the Thanksgiving holiday. My father opened the door with an unexpected announcement. "You will babysit your sister's children. We are going on family trip." Before I could process this, my sister Amanda appeared with her 3 unruly children, saying mockingly, "Don't wipe your snot on him, kids." The family laughed, as if this betrayal was hilarious. I felt a strange calm wash over me as I made a decision that would change everything. The phone calls from my father started about 2 months before Thanksgiving, each one more desperate than the last. "Norris, son, we miss you. It's been too long," he said during the first call, his voice carrying that familiar, authoritative tone that had defined my childhood. At 32 years old, I had built a life for myself in Seattle, over 2,000 miles away from my family home in Georgia. The distance wasn't accidental. After years of feeling like the family disappointment, I had found success as a software engineer at a prominent tech company. My apartment overlooked Lake Union. I had friends who respected me, and colleagues who valued my contributions. The life I had created felt solid, secure, and most importantly, it was mine. "It's been 3 years, son. 3 Thanksgivings without you," my father continued during our second call. "Your mother misses you terribly." What he didn't mention was how our last Thanksgiving together had ended. The shouting match when I announced I was taking the job in Seattle instead of joining the family insurance business. The look of disgust on his face when I told him I needed to forge my own path. The way he had dismissed my career as playing with computers, while praising my sister Amanda for marrying into the wealthy Jackson family and giving him grandchildren. Amanda, 4 years older than me, had always been the golden child. Her marriage to Timothy Jackson, heir to a regional banking fortune, had only cemented her status in our family hierarchy. Their 3 children, Tyler, 8, Emma, 6, and Lucas, 4, were the center of my parents' world. The refrigerator door I remembered from childhood, once covered with my academic awards and honor roll certificates, now displayed only crayon drawings and school photos of Amanda's children. "Things are different now, Norris. I've had time to think," my father said in his third call, his voice softening uncharacteristically. "I was wrong about some things. I want us to heal as a family." By the 5th call, there was something close to begging in his tone. "Please, son, just this one holiday. For your mother." That final appeal worked. My mother, always caught in the crossfire between my father and me, had been the one person who sometimes saw me for who I was. She'd slipped books about computer programming under my bedroom door when I was a teenager, a secret acknowledgement of my interests that my father would have discouraged. So I agreed. I requested time off work during a critical phase of our project, earning me a raised eyebrow from my team lead. I booked an overpriced last-minute flight that departed at an ungodly 6 in the morning. I even bought gifts for my nieces and nephew, children I barely knew beyond their faces in the occasional family photos my mother sent. The morning of my flight, I woke at 4, double-checked my suitcase, and headed to the airport with a mixture of dread and hope churning in my stomach. Maybe my father had changed. Maybe this would be the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship. The thought warmed me as I sat in the terminal, watching the sunrise through the massive windows. My flight was delayed twice. First due to fog, then because of a mechanical issue that required us to switch aircraft. By the time we finally took off, I had already spent 5 hours in the airport, scrolling mindlessly through my phone and rehearsing conversations with my family in my head. Midway through the flight, as I was trying to nap in the cramped economy seat, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Things aren't what they seem. Call before you arrive." The cryptic message stirred anxiety in me, but when I tried calling, the connection failed. I dismissed it as typical mom dramatics and tried to focus on the audiobook I had downloaded for the journey. By the time I finally landed in Atlanta and made the hour-long drive to my parents' suburban home in Marietta, I was running on fumes. Nearly 15 hours of travel time had left me with a stiff neck, bloodshot eyes, and a desperate need for a shower and real food. But beneath the exhaustion, there was a flicker of anticipation. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe my father's apparent change of heart was genuine. I parked my rental car in the driveway of the 2-story colonial house where I'd grown up. The lawn was immaculately maintained, as always. My father's pride and joy, his black Lincoln Navigator, sat gleaming in the afternoon Sunday. Next to it was Amanda's white Range Rover with a proud Mom of Honor student sticker on the back window. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my suitcase and approached the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open to reveal my father, Walter Jenkins, dressed not in the casual clothes I'd expected for a family Thanksgiving gathering, but in a golf shirt and khakis that suggested he was headed out. His greeting changed everything. "You will babysit your sister's children. We are going on family trip," my father announced, as if informing me of a long-established plan instead of dropping a bombshell. I stood frozen on the doorstep, my suitcase handle still gripped tightly in my hand. Before I could form a response, Amanda appeared behind him, her blonde hair perfectly styled, designer sunglasses perched on her head. "Don't wipe your snot on him, kids," she said with a smirk, as her 3 children peered around her legs with mischievous eyes. The children burst into giggles, while my father and sister exchanged knowing glances. My father clapped me on the shoulder and pulled me inside, as if this was all perfectly normal. "Wait," I finally managed to say, finding my voice. "What do you mean, babysit? I just flew 6 hours to get here." 6.5, actually, my father corrected, checking his watch. "Your flight was late. We're on a schedule, Norris. The resort in Naples won't hold our rooms forever." "Naples? Florida? What resort?" The questions tumbled out as I tried to make sense of what was happening. My mother appeared from the kitchen, looking uncomfortable. "Norris, honey, I tried to warn you," she said softly. She was dressed for travel too, in white capri pants and a floral blouse. "Your father won a golf tournament at his club," Amanda explained, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. The prize was a 5-day stay at this amazing beach resort, 4 rooms. One for Mom and Dad, one for Timothy and me, one for the kids, and one for Timothy's parents. "But you told me to come for Thanksgiving," I said, looking at my father. "You called multiple times. You practically begged." My father waved his hand dismissively. "And you're here. We appreciate you making the trip. Now you can spend quality time with your nieces and nephew while we enjoy a well-deserved vacation." "We leave in 30 minutes, Amanda said brightly. "The kids have already had lunch, but they'll need dinner around 6. Lucas still takes a nap in the afternoon if he gets cranky. Oh, and Tyler has a school project due Monday that he needs help with." I looked from my sister to my father, waiting for someone to crack a smile and reveal this was all an elaborate joke. But their expressions remained matter of fact, as if what they were proposing was completely reasonable. "Where am I supposed to stay?" I asked, realizing I hadn't seen any preparations for my visit. "We converted your old bedroom into a playroom for the grandkids years ago," my mother said, apologetically. "There's a cot set up in there for you." "A cot," I repeated flatly. "It's very comfortable," my mother assured me, not meeting my eyes. I followed her upstairs to see my childhood bedroom transformed beyond recognition. The blue walls I had once covered with tech magazine cutouts and NASA posters were now bright yellow. A chaotic array of toys covered the floor, and a small folding cot had been squeezed into the corner with a thin blanket and single pillow. "I'm sorry it's not more comfortable," my mother said. "We just don't have guests often, and when Amanda and Timothy visit with the children, they need the space." I placed my suitcase on the cot, which creaked ominously under even that small weight. "Mom, what's going on?" Dad called me repeatedly, saying he wanted to heal our relationship. He practically begged me to come. My mother twisted her wedding ring nervously. "Your father does want to reconnect, Norris. He just has his own way of doing things." Before I could press her further, a crash echoed from downstairs, followed by the sound of children arguing. My mother rushed out, leaving me alone in the yellow room that held no trace of my existence. When I came back downstairs, I found Tyler and Emma fighting over my laptop, which I had foolishly left on the coffee table. As I rushed to intervene, Lucas, the 4-year-old, spilled juice all over the keyboard. "Kids, careful with Uncle Norris's computer," Amanda called out half-heartedly, not bothering to move from where she was checking her luggage. I grabbed napkins from the kitchen, desperately trying to dry off my laptop, which contained not only my personal files, but crucial work projects. The screen flickered ominously before going black. "Dad, I need to talk to you," I said, finding him in the garage loading suitcases into Amanda's Range Rover. "This isn't what we discussed. I can't just drop everything to babysit. You never had a family, You wouldn't understand responsibilities, he replied without looking up. Amanda and Timothy work hard. They deserve this break. And your mother has been looking forward to this trip for weeks. But I have responsibilities too, I protested. I took time off from an important project to be here. My laptop, which I need for work, just got damaged by the kids. My father finally turned to face me. See, this is exactly your problem, Norris. Always thinking about yourself. Amanda has given us 3 beautiful grandchildren. What have you contributed to this family lately? The familiar sting of his disapproval hit me like it always had. Before I could respond, Timothy arrived, pulling into the driveway in his Tesla. Tall, blonde, and perpetually tanned, Timothy had the easy confidence of someone who had never worried about money a day in his life. Norris, the prodigal brother-in-law returns, he announced, giving me a firm handshake. Thanks for pinch-hitting with the little monsters. The nanny picked this week to have her appendix out, if you can believe it. Talk about inconvenient timing. I forced a smile, realizing this trip had been planned long before my father's calls had started. When did you book this resort? I asked casually. Oh, months ago, Timothy replied, oblivious to the implication. Walter won that tournament back in August, and we've been coordinating schedules ever since. It's peak season in Naples, you know. A cold understanding washed over me. This wasn't a spontaneous trip that happened to coincide with my visit. This was the plan all along. My presence was never about family reconciliation. I was simply the solution to their childcare problem. As the adults continued loading the vehicles, I retreated to the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to process this betrayal. Through the window, I could see them laughing and talking, a tight family unit that clearly didn't include me. They'll be gone by 5, my mother said, entering the kitchen. I've left money for pizza, and there's plenty of food in the fridge. We'll be back Tuesday afternoon. 5 days? I asked. My flight back to Seattle is Sunday night. Oh. My mother looked surprised, as if this detail had never been discussed. Well, I'm sure the children will be fine alone for a day. Tyler is very mature for 8. I stared at her in disbelief. You want me to leave 3 children under 10 alone in the house? I'll talk to your father, she said quickly, but her expression suggested she already knew how that conversation would end. As my parents, sister, and brother-in-law prepared for their departure, I overheard a conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions. I told you he'd do it, my father was saying to Amanda in the hallway. We finally got some use out of him. Did you see his face? Amanda replied with a laugh. Just like when we used to tell him he was adopted. I retreated upstairs, ostensibly to unpack, but really to escape their casual cruelty. In the playroom that had once been my bedroom, I noticed a box of old photo albums shoved into the closet. Pulling one out, I flipped through images of family vacations and holidays. In several photos, there was an obvious empty space where someone had been cropped out. In others, group shots had been carefully arranged to push me to the edge, making it easy to fold the photo or cut it down later. It was a visual record of my gradual erasure from the family narrative. The first night of babysitting was worse than I could have imagined. After my family departed in their 2-car caravan, leaving behind a hastily scribbled note of emergency contacts, I found myself alone with 3 children who viewed me as an intruder in their grandparents' house. Mom says we don't have to listen to you, Tyler informed me, arms crossed defiantly. You're not really in charge. Yeah, Emma chimed in. We can stay up as late as we want. Lucas, the youngest, simply stared at me with suspicious eyes, thumb firmly planted in his mouth. Your mom asked me to take care of you while they're away, I said, trying to sound authoritative, despite feeling completely out of my depth. So yes, I am in charge. And we're going to start by cleaning up this mess. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Toys, books, and snack wrappers covered every surface. My laptop still sat on the coffee table, its screen dark and unresponsive. That's the housekeeper's job, Tyler declared. The housekeeper comes on Mondays. Today is Wednesday, I pointed out. If we all help, it won't take long. This suggestion was met with theatrical groans and complaints, but I stood firm. Eventually, with considerable resistance, we managed to restore some order to the main floor of the house. Dinner was another battle. The pizza I ordered was criticized for having the wrong toppings. The vegetables I encouraged them to eat were pushed around plates and hidden in napkins. Bedtime was an even greater challenge. Despite my best efforts, the children refused to sleep at a reasonable hour, running between rooms, jumping on beds, and creating an impressive amount of noise for 3 small humans. By midnight, when they finally succumbed to exhaustion, I collapsed onto the uncomfortable cot, too tired even to check if my laptop could be revived. The house was quiet at last, but my mind raced with resentment and disbelief at how thoroughly I had been manipulated. I woke the next morning to my phone ringing. It was Jake, my team lead from work. "Norris, we've got a situation with the Meridian project," he said without preamble. "The client is asking for changes to the back-end integration. I need you to look at the code and give us your input." I glanced at the time. 6:30 in the morning. The house was still quiet, the children asleep. "I'll try, Jake, but my laptop got damaged yesterday. I'm not sure if I can access anything." "Damaged? Norris, this is critical. The client meeting is at 11 Pacific time, and we need those fixes before then." I promised to do my best and hung up. After retrieving my laptop, I tried every trick I knew to revive it, but the juice spill had done serious damage. With growing panic, I realized I might need to find a computer store that opened early on Thanksgiving Day, a nearly impossible task. As I was contemplating my options, Lucas wandered into the kitchen, hair tousled from sleep, looking pale and unwell. "My tummy hurts," he announced, and promptly vomited on the floor. The next few hours were a blur of cleaning up sick, taking temperatures, and trying to comfort a feverish 4-year-old while keeping the other 2 children entertained. By mid-morning, it was clear that Lucas had a stomach virus. He couldn't keep anything down, even water, and was becoming lethargic. I called Amanda, increasingly worried about her youngest child. "Amanda, Lucas is sick. He's thrown up 4 times and has a fever of 101. Should I take him to urgent care?" "He probably just ate too much junk food," she dismissed. "Give him some crackers and ginger ale. He'll be fine." "But he can't keep anything down," I insisted. "And he's really lethargic." "Norris, we're about to go parasailing. I can't deal with this right now. Just handle it, okay? That's why you're there." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief. Her child was potentially seriously ill, and she couldn't be bothered to even show concern. With no other option, I bundled Lucas up and took all 3 children to the nearest urgent care center, only to find it closed for the holiday. The emergency room was our next stop, where we waited for 3 hours before a doctor confirmed Lucas had a nasty stomach virus that was going around, but nothing that required hospitalization. By the time we returned home, I had missed the client meeting completely. 6 voice messages from Jake expressed increasing frustration with my absence. The most recent simply said, "Call me, now." When I finally reached him, his disappointment was palpable. "We needed you on this, Norris. The client is questioning our commitment to the project." "I'm sorry, Jake. There was a medical emergency with my nephew." "I thought you went home to reconnect with family," he said, "not to provide emergency childcare." "That makes 2 of us," I muttered. After getting the children settled with a movie, I called my mother, hoping for some support, or at least sympathy. "Mom, this isn't fair. Lucas has been sick. I missed an important work meeting, and Amanda won't even take my calls now." "I'm sorry, honey," my mother said, the sounds of a beach party audible in the background. "But this is just how family works sometimes. We all make sacrifices." "No, Mom, this isn't about sacrifice. This is about Dad and Amanda manipulating me. They planned this months ago." "Your father means well, Norris. He just wants everyone to be happy." "Everyone except me, apparently," I replied bitterly. After hanging up, I searched the kitchen for children's medicine, opening cabinets and drawers. In one drawer, I found a stack of mail, including bank statements addressed to my father. I wouldn't have given them a second glance, except that one envelope had my name written on it. Opening it, I discovered it was a bank notice regarding a loan in my name, a loan I had never taken out. 7 years ago, my father had asked me to co-sign what he called a small medical loan for what he claimed was a procedure my mother needed that insurance wouldn't cover. I had agreed without question, wanting to help my mother. But according to this statement, the $20,000 had been fully withdrawn the day after I signed the papers. The payment history showed minimal payments made, just enough to avoid default. And the loan purpose was listed not as medical, but as personal. With growing suspicion, I began searching more thoroughly through my father's papers. In his home office desk, behind the family Bible, I found a folder with my name on it. Inside was a copy of another loan application, bank statements, and a brochure for a destination wedding resort in Cabo San Lucas. The dates corresponded exactly with Amanda and Timothy's wedding 7 years ago. My father had borrowed $20,000 in my name to pay for my sister's wedding, a wedding I hadn't even been invited to attend. The discovery of the loan documents was just the beginning. With Lucas feeling slightly better the next morning, and the older children occupied with a holiday cartoon marathon, I returned to my father's office, determined to understand the full extent of his deception. In the back of his filing cabinet, behind tax records and insurance policies, I found a thick manila envelope labeled Jenkins Estate. Inside were documents relating to my grandmother's will and the distribution of her assets after her death 5 years ago. My grandmother, Eleanor Jenkins, had been a tough but fair woman who ran a successful local bakery for 40 years. She had always shown me special attention, encouraging my interest in computers when no one else in the family did. She passed away while I was in my first year at the tech company in Seattle. My father had called to inform me of her death, told me the funeral had already been arranged as a small family affair, and suggested I not make the trip given my new job commitments. According to the documents I now held in my trembling hands, Grandma Eleanor had left specific bequests in her will. While the majority of her estate went to my father, she had explicitly left me her collection of first edition books and $30,000 to pursue his dreams in the technology field. I had received neither. There was also a personal letter addressed to me that had never been delivered. In it, my grandmother expressed her pride in my courage to forge my own path and her confidence in my future success. The letter brought tears to my eyes as I realized this connection and support had been deliberately kept from me. Further searching revealed bank records, showing my inheritance had been deposited into an account in my name, then systematically transferred out in chunks to my parents' joint account over the course of several months. With shaking hands, I took photos of all the documents with my phone, carefully returning everything to its original location. Then I searched online for the contact information for my grandmother's lawyer, Harold Simmons, whose signature appeared on the will. I left a message with his office, not expecting a response on a holiday, but to my surprise, he called back within the hour. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Jenkins," he said after I explained the situation. "The will was properly executed, and the assets distributed according to your grandmother's wishes. If you're saying you never received your inheritance, that's a serious matter." "I had no idea she left me anything," I told him. "My father never mentioned it." "I sent correspondence to you at the address your father provided," Mr. Simmons said. "When I received signed acknowledgments back, I assumed you had received everything. Can you send me copies of those acknowledgments?" I asked. "I'll need to confirm your identity first, but yes, I can do that." "This is troubling, Mr. Jenkins. Very troubling indeed." While waiting for the children to finish their movie, I continued my investigation, searching through old family photo albums. In one, I found pictures of family vacations I had never been taken on, birthday celebrations I hadn't been invited to, and holiday gatherings during years when I had been told we're keeping it small this year, no need to come home. My exclusion from family life was more systematic than I had realized. "Uncle Norris?" Emma's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway of the office, watching me with curious eyes. "What are you doing?" "Just looking at some old pictures," I said, closing the album quickly. She came closer, peering at the photos. "Why aren't you in any of them?" "I was probably taking the pictures," I lied. Emma seemed to accept this explanation. "Tyler says you're a computer genius. Is that true?" "I wouldn't say genius," I replied, surprised by her interest. "But I do know a lot about computers. Could you help me make a game? Mom and Dad never have time." Something in her tone, a mixture of matter-of-factness and resignation, struck me. These children, for all their apparent privilege, were starved for attention in their own way. "Sure," I said. "Let me check on Lucas first, and then we can talk about what kind of game you'd like to make." Lucas was napping on the couch, his fever down. Tyler was building something elaborate with blocks, his cartoon forgotten. "What are you making?" I asked him. He shrugged, not looking up. "A fortress. To keep out invaders." "Looks pretty impressive," I said, sitting down beside him. "Who are you defending against?" Tyler was quiet for a moment, adding another block to his structure. Mom said if we made you miserable, she'd take us to Disneyland when they get back. The casual cruelty of this statement hit me like a physical blow. She said that? Tyler nodded, still focused on his blocks. She said you deserve it, because you're selfish and don't care about family. Do you think that's true? I asked, keeping my voice neutral despite the hurt and anger rising within me. Tyler finally looked up, his young face serious. I don't know. We never see you. Mom says it's because you think you're better than us. That's not true, I said gently. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings about each other that have nothing to do with the children in the family. I'm sorry I haven't been around more. Tyler seemed to consider this. Your computer game was cool before Lucas broke it. Could you make another one? I think I could, I said, an idea forming. In fact, maybe we could make one together. You and Emma and even Lucas when he's feeling better. For the first time since my arrival, Tyler smiled at me. A genuine smile without the defiance or suspicion I'd seen before. As we began planning a simple coding project, my phone buzzed with an email from Mr. Simmons containing scanned copies of the acknowledgement forms supposedly signed by me. The signature was clearly forged, a poor imitation of my handwriting that nevertheless had been good enough to fool a lawyer who had never met me. Later that afternoon, while the children were engrossed in learning the basics of a child-friendly coding program I found online, I received another call from my mother. Just checking in, she said, her voice artificially bright. How is everything going? Lucas had a stomach virus, I said. I had to take him to the emergency room. Oh dear. Is he all right now? He's better. No thanks to Amanda, who couldn't be bothered to even talk to the doctor when I called her. My mother sighed. Amanda has a lot on her plate, Norris. Mom, I need to ask you something, I said, cutting through her excuses. Did you know about the money Grandma Eleanor left me in her will? There was a long pause on the line. Who told you about that? So you did know, and you let Dad take it. It wasn't like that, my mother said quickly. Your father managed the estate. He made decisions he thought were best for the family. It wasn't his decision to make, Mom. That money was mine. Norris, please understand. Amanda needed help with the down payment on their house. Your father felt that since you were doing so well in Seattle, the money would be better used to help your sister get established. The casual way she justified the theft left me speechless. We're coming home early, my mother suddenly announced. Timothy has a work emergency, so we're cutting the trip short. We'll be back tomorrow night instead of Tuesday. After hanging up, I looked at the three children now happily engaged in creating a simple game under my guidance. Despite everything, I felt a growing connection with them, a protective instinct I hadn't expected. They were innocent in this toxic family dynamic, unwitting pawns in their parents' manipulative games. I also realized that my time to act was shorter than I'd anticipated. With the family returning early, I needed to accelerate my plans. That evening, as the children slept, I called my best friend Jack, who had been sending increasingly concerned texts throughout the day. Norris, what the hell is going on? He asked when I finally reached him. Your Instagram shows you're suddenly playing nanny to your sister's kids? I explained everything, from the bait and switch of my holiday invitation to the discoveries about my grandmother's will and the forged loan. That's seriously messed up, Jack said when I finished. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, I admitted, but I'm not going to let them get away with it this time. You need evidence, Jack advised. And witnesses. Your word against theirs won't be enough, especially with your history. I've been taking photos of everything I find, I assured him. And I'm meeting with my grandmother's lawyer when the banks open after the holiday. Good, Jack said. And Norris? Don't let them gaslight you. What they did was wrong, period. After hanging up, I sat in the dim light of the kitchen, formulating a plan. Jack was right. I needed more than just accusations. I needed irrefutable proof and a clear strategy for confrontation. Tomorrow, I would gather the final pieces of evidence and prepare for my family's return. This time, things would be different. This time, I would stand my ground. The next morning, I woke with a clarity of purpose I hadn't felt in years. The children, perhaps sensing the change in my demeanor, were surprisingly cooperative at breakfast. Even Lucas, mostly recovered from his stomach virus, ate his toast without complaint. What are we doing today, Uncle Norris? Emma asked, carefully pouring milk on her cereal. "I thought we could finish our game," I replied. "Then maybe go to the park if the weather stays nice." "Are Mom and Dad really coming back today?" Tyler asked, his expression unreadable. "That's what Grandma said. They should be home this evening." Tyler exchanged a look with his sister that spoke volumes. These children weren't just spoiled. They were neglected in the way that materially privileged children often are, given everything except their parents' time and attention. "We could have our own Thanksgiving," I suggested impulsively. "I know it was yesterday, but we could make a special dinner together before they get back." This idea was met with enthusiasm, particularly from Emma, who revealed a budding interest in cooking. After our morning coding session, where we added graphics and sound effects to the simple game we'd created, we ventured to the grocery store for supplies. As the children helped select ingredients for a simplified Thanksgiving meal, I received a call from Mr. Simmons, my grandmother's lawyer. "Mr. Jenkins, I've reviewed our files more thoroughly," he said. "There are several irregularities regarding your inheritance. I'd like to meet with you as soon as possible." We arranged to meet at his office that afternoon. After returning home and setting the turkey breast to roast, I faced the challenge of taking 3 children to a lawyer's office. To my surprise, they were intrigued, rather than resistant. "Are you going to sue someone, Uncle Norris?" Tyler asked, his eyes wide with interest. "Like in the movies?" "Not exactly," I said, helping Lucas tie his shoes. "I just need to talk to a lawyer about some family business. You 3 will need to be very quiet and well-behaved." "We can do that," Emma assured me, with unexpected seriousness. "We know how to be quiet when adults are talking about important things." Her statement, delivered with such adult resignation, broke my heart a little. Mr. Simmons's office was in a historic building in downtown Marietta. The children, true to their word, sat quietly in the reception area, with tablets I'd loaded with educational games, while I met with the elderly lawyer in his book-lined office. "I've prepared copies of all the relevant documents," Mr. Simmons said, pushing a folder across his desk. "It appears your signature was forged on multiple documents, not just the acknowledgement of inheritance." He showed me power of attorney forms, bank transfer authorizations, and even a document relinquishing my claim to the first edition book collection, all bearing crude approximations of my signature. "This is serious, Mr. Jenkins," the lawyer continued. "Forgery, fraud, theft of inheritance. These are criminal matters." "What are my options?" I asked, trying to process the scope of the deception. "You could pursue criminal charges," he said gravely. "Or you could seek civil remedies to recover your inheritance, plus interest. Either way, I must inform you that I can no longer represent your father in any capacity due to this clear conflict of interest." I left his office with a complete file of documents, notarized statements from Mr. Simmons confirming the suspected fraud, and a clearer understanding of my legal position. I also had the contact information for a criminal lawyer should I choose to pursue that route. Back at the house, we continued our impromptu Thanksgiving preparations. As I showed Emma how to make simple gravy from the turkey drippings, my phone rang. It was Jake from work. "Norris, we need to talk about your return," he said, his tone serious. The client was not happy with how the Meridian situation was handled. "I know, Jake. I'm sorry. It's been a complicated visit." "I understand family emergencies happen," Jake said, "but your commitment to this project was a major factor in your performance review." "I'll be back Sunday night as planned," I assured him. "And I'll make up for lost time." "That's just it," Jake replied. "We need you back for an emergency meeting Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp." I agreed, mentally adjusting my plans. With my family returning that evening and my flight still scheduled for Sunday, I had a narrow window to confront them and resolve this situation. As we sat down to our modest but heartfelt Thanksgiving dinner, I watched the children laugh and talk with an animation I hadn't seen before. In just 2 days, I had formed a genuine connection with these kids who had initially seemed like adversaries. They weren't responsible for their parents' actions or attitudes, and in many ways, they were victims of the same toxic family dynamic I had escaped. "Uncle Norris," Lucas said, his fork poised midair, "are you going to come back and visit us again?" The simple question caught me off guard. "Would you want me to?" All 3 children nodded emphatically. "You're not boring like most grown-ups," Tyler explained. "And you teach us cool stuff." "I'd like that," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. "But first, I need to have a serious talk with your mom and dad and grandparents when they get back. About the money? Emma asked perceptively. I hesitated, unsure how much to share with the children. Yes, partly about money, but also about how family members should treat each other. Are you going to yell? Lucas asked in a small voice. I don't like yelling. No, buddy, I assured him. No yelling. Just honest conversation. After dinner, as I supervised the children packing their belongings for the return home, I finalized my strategy. I would confront my family calmly but firmly, with evidence in hand. I would give them the opportunity to make things right, but I would no longer accept excuses or manipulation. The sound of cars in the driveway announced their return. The children ran to the window, their earlier enthusiasm about seeing their parents now tempered by our conversations. Remember, I said to them quietly, whatever happens, it's not about you. The adults in this family have some things to work out. As my father, mother, sister, and brother-in-law entered the house, laughing and talking about their trip, I stood in the living room, folder of evidence in hand, ready for the confrontation that was long overdue. My family burst through the front door in a wave of chatter and luggage, sunburned and relaxed from their beach getaway. Their carefree entrance faltered when they saw me standing calmly in the living room, rather than rushing to help with their bags as they'd clearly expected. You're back early, I said, my voice steady. Timothy had a work thing, Amanda replied dismissively. Where are the kids? Lucas, Emma, Tyler. The children appeared from the kitchen, where they had been helping clean up our Thanksgiving dinner. To everyone's surprise, they greeted their parents with restrained politeness, rather than the enthusiastic hugs expected after a separation. Did you wash your hands? Amanda asked automatically. You know Mommy doesn't like sticky fingers. Uncle Norris taught us to always clean up after cooking, Emma informed her. We made Thanksgiving dinner. Amanda and my parents exchanged confused glances, clearly thrown by this development. You cooked? My father asked incredulously. Since when do you know how to cook, Norris? There's a lot you don't know about me, Dad, I replied. But we'll get to that. Why don't we all sit down? We need to talk. Can't it wait? Amanda sighed. We've been traveling all day. I need a shower and a glass of wine. It's waited long enough, I said firmly. Kids, why don't you go upstairs and play your new game for a while? The adults need to talk. The children nodded and headed upstairs without protest. Another surprise for their parents. What have you been telling them? Amanda demanded once they were out of earshot. They're acting strange. I've been telling them the truth, I said, which is more than I can say for any of you. My father's expression darkened. What's that supposed to mean? Let's start with why you really wanted me to come home for Thanksgiving, I suggested, gesturing toward the dining room table. Please, sit down. Reluctantly, they complied, exchanging glances that ranged from confused to defensive. Timothy, looking uncomfortable, loosened his tie. Norris, if this is about the babysitting, we can discuss compensation, he offered. This isn't about compensation, Timothy. This is about years of lies and manipulation. I placed the folder of documents on the table. This is about my grandmother's inheritance that was stolen from me. This is about loans taken out in my name without my knowledge. This is about being used and excluded from this family unless you needed something from me. My father's face flushed red. That's ridiculous. We've always treated you as part of this family. Have you? I opened the folder and began laying out documents one by one. Here's Grandma Eleanor's will, specifically leaving me $30,000 and her book collection. Here are the bank records showing that money being systematically transferred to your account, Dad. Here are the power of attorney forms with my forged signature. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Amanda's eyes widened, while Timothy looked increasingly uncomfortable. And here, I continued, is a notarized statement from Mr. Simmons confirming that these signatures are forgeries and that he's withdrawing as your lawyer due to evidence of fraud. My father's expression transformed from anger to calculation. Norris, you're misinterpreting things. The money was used for family purposes. We're all family here. Family purposes like Amanda's destination wedding? A wedding I wasn't even invited to attend? Amanda had the grace to look slightly embarrassed, but quickly rallied. You were in Seattle. You wouldn't have come anyway. You don't know that because you never asked. Just like no one asked if I wanted to lend Dad $20,000 for your wedding, or if I wanted my inheritance used for the down payment on your house. Timothy's head snapped toward my sister. What? You told me your parents gave us that down payment from their savings. The look of shock on his face suggested this was the first he was hearing about the true source of their house funds. A crack appeared in the united family front. It's complicated, honey, Amanda said quickly. Family finances are always intertwined. Not when it involves forgery and fraud, I countered, turning to my father. You stole from your own son. You lied to me about loans, about Grandma's will, about everything. I made decisions as the head of this family, my father insisted, though his voice had lost some of its authority. Sometimes tough decisions have to be made for the greater good. The greater good? I repeated incredulously. Was it for the greater good to exclude me from family vacations? To crop me out of family photos? To tell the kids I'm selfish and don't care about family? My mother was openly crying now. Norris, we never meant to hurt you. It just became a pattern over time. Your father felt that since you chose to move away, to prioritize your career over family business. I'm filing legal charges for financial fraud, I announced, delivering the statement I had rehearsed. Unless you make full restitution, all of it, with interest. My sister screamed, jumping to her feet. You can't be serious. Over ancient history? This is just spite. This isn't spite, Amanda. This is justice. And it's not ancient history when I'm still paying off a loan I never took out. My father stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. This is outrageous. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Besides take my money, forge my signature, and manipulate me into providing free childcare under false pretenses? You ungrateful little. My father began, his face contorted with rage. Walter, please, my mother interrupted, reaching for his arm. Let's all calm down. I'm sure we can work this out as a family. That's just it, Mom. We're not functioning as a family. We're functioning as a hierarchy with Dad at the top, Amanda as the favored child, and me as the outsider, only welcomed when useful. Norris, please, my mother begged. Don't do this. Think about what it would do to the family name, to the children. I have thought about the children. More than their own parents have, apparently. Did you know Amanda promised them a trip to Disneyland if they made me miserable while I was babysitting? Timothy turned to my sister in shock. Amanda, tell me that's not true. Amanda's silence was confirmation enough. I'm not doing this to hurt the family, I continued more gently. I'm doing this because the patterns need to stop. The manipulation, the lies, the favoritism. It's toxic, and it's damaging everyone, including the kids. At that moment, a movement on the stairs caught my attention. The children had crept down and were listening from the hallway, their faces solemn. Mom, is it true? Tyler asked, stepping into view. Did you tell us to be mean to Uncle Norris? Amanda flushed, caught between anger and shame. Tyler, this is grown-up business. Go back upstairs. You did say that, Mom, Emma confirmed, joining her brother. You said if we made him want to leave, we'd get to go to Disneyland. Lucas nodded in agreement, his small face serious. The revelation from the children's own mouths shifted something in the room. Timothy stood up, his expression hardened. I think I need some air, he said, walking toward the door. And apparently, we have some things to discuss, Amanda. As he left, the fragile family alliance further crumbled. My mother was crying quietly, my father was silently fuming, and Amanda looked trapped between defiance and fear of her husband's reaction. Here's what's going to happen, I said, bringing the focus back to the matter at hand. You have two options. 1. You make full restitution for everything taken from me, with interest, and we agree to establish healthier boundaries going forward. Or 2. I file charges and let the courts decide. You're bluffing, my father said, but with less conviction than before. Try me, I challenged him. I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval, trying to be part of this family. I'm done with that now. I've built a good life for myself in Seattle. I don't need your acceptance anymore. But I do deserve justice. My father and I locked eyes across the table, decades of unspoken conflict between us. For the first time, he was the one who looked away first. 30 days, I said. You have 30 days to transfer the full amount to my account and arrange for the book collection to be shipped to me. I've prepared a document outlining everything, including proof of what was taken. I pushed a final paper across the table. A detailed accounting of the stolen inheritance, the fraudulent loan, and the accumulated interest. This is extortion, my father muttered, but he picked up the paper. No, Dad. This is accountability. 3 months after the confrontation in my parents' dining room, I found myself back in Georgia, this time staying at a hotel rather than my childhood home. The winter chill had given way to early spring, with cherry blossoms beginning to bloom along the streets of Marietta. Much had changed in those 3 months. My father, after initial resistance and threats, had ultimately complied with my demand for restitution. The full amount of my grandmother's inheritance, plus interest, had been transferred to my account. The precious collection of first edition books had been carefully packed and shipped to my apartment in Seattle, where they now occupied a specially built bookcase in my living room. But the financial settlement was just the beginning of the transformation within my family. My father had begun seeing a therapist, something I would never have imagined possible. According to my mother, who called me weekly now, he was slowly confronting his controlling, manipulative behavior and the damage it had caused. It's not easy for him, she admitted during one of our calls. He was raised to believe that being the patriarch meant making all the decisions, controlling all the resources. But he's trying, Norris. He really is. My mother had made her own changes. She had moved temporarily into the guest house of a friend, establishing physical and emotional distance from my father for the first time in their 40-year marriage. I enabled so much of his behavior, she told me, her voice stronger than I had ever heard it. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was just allowing the hurt to continue. Amanda's marriage had gone through its own upheaval. Timothy, disturbed by the revelations about the source of their home down payment and his wife's manipulation of their children, had insisted on couples counseling. Their relationship remained fragile, but they were working on establishing more honesty and healthier parenting approaches. As for me, I had returned to Seattle and my job with a new sense of confidence and boundaries. Jake and the team had been understanding once I explained the family emergency in broad terms. I had thrown myself back into the Meridian project, working extra hours to make up for my absence, and the client had been impressed with the results. Now I was back in Georgia, not because of manipulation or obligation, but by choice. I had arranged to spend a weekend with my nieces and nephew, fulfilling a promise I had made to stay connected with them despite the complicated adult relationships in our family. They were waiting for me in the lobby of the Science Museum, accompanied by Timothy, rather than Amanda. The children spotted me first, running across the polished floor to greet me with genuine excitement. "Uncle Norris, did you bring your computer? Can we make another game?" Tyler asked, bouncing on his toes. "I want to show you my science project," Emma added. "I got an A+. Lucas simply hugged my legs, a gesture of affection that touched me deeply. Timothy approached more slowly, offering his hand. "Thanks for doing this, Norris. The kids have talked about nothing else all week. I'm happy to spend time with them," I said sincerely. "How are things?" Timothy sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Complicated. But better, I think. More honest, at least." I nodded, understanding the journey he and my sister were on. "And Amanda? How is she doing with all this?" "She's trying," he said after a moment. "She started therapy too, dealing with a lot of her own issues about your father's favoritism and how it shaped her." The children pulled us toward the dinosaur exhibit, their enthusiasm breaking the serious mood. For the next few hours, we explored the museum together, the complicated adult dynamics temporarily set aside in favor of scientific discovery and childish wonder. Later, over lunch in the museum cafe, Timothy mentioned that my parents had asked if I would be willing to see them during this visit. "No pressure," he added quickly. "They understand if you need more time." I considered the request. 3 months ago, I would have refused outright, the wound still too fresh. But now, with the financial matters settled and evidence of genuine effort to change, I felt ready for a cautious step toward reconciliation. "I'll meet them for coffee tomorrow," I decided. Neutral territory, short visit. Timothy nodded, understanding the boundaries I was setting. They'll appreciate that. The next day, I met my parents at a small cafe downtown. The awkwardness was palpable as we exchanged tentative greetings and made small talk about the weather. My father, usually commanding and verbose, seemed diminished somehow, less certain of his place in the world. "Norris," he finally said, setting down his coffee cup with a slight tremor in his hand. I want to apologize. What I did was wrong. Not just the financial deceptions, but the way I treated you your whole life. The words seemed to cost him physically, each one dragged out against a lifetime of pride and entitlement. But they were genuine, perhaps the first truly genuine words he had spoken to me in decades. I always saw your independence as rejection, he continued. I couldn't understand why you wouldn't follow the path I had laid out. But I was wrong to punish you for finding your own way. My mother reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but bridging some of the distance between us. We're trying to learn, Norris, to do better. I nodded, acknowledging their effort without immediately offering the forgiveness they clearly hoped for. It's going to take time, I told them honestly. Trust is rebuilt slowly, through consistent actions, not just words. We understand, my mother said, while my father nodded solemnly. But I'm willing to try, I added. For my sake as much as yours, and for the kids. We parted with tentative plans for regular video calls, and perhaps another visit in the summer. It wasn't a Hollywood reconciliation with tears and embraces, but it was an adult recognition that healing would be a process, not an event. That evening, I received a surprise call from Amanda. Our conversation was stilted at first, years of rivalry and resentment creating a barrier between us. Timothy said you're good with the kids, she said, an admission that seemed difficult for her. They can't stop talking about you. They're great kids, Amanda. Smart, creative. They just need consistent attention. She was quiet for a moment. I'm not very good at that part. The day-to-day stuff. It's not too late to learn, I offered. They're still young. Another silence. My therapist says I've been competing with you our whole lives. For Dad's approval. Even when I had it, I never felt secure. The insight surprised me, opening a window into a perspective I had never considered. To me, Amanda had always been the golden child, the favorite. I had never imagined she felt insecure about her place in the family hierarchy. Maybe we were both losing in different ways, I suggested. Maybe, she agreed softly. Anyway, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For a lot of things. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. The following weekend back in Seattle, I established a new tradition, setting up regular video calls with my nieces and nephew. We continued developing their coding skills, building increasingly complex games, and sharing their progress. I had set up a college fund for each of them, a small portion of my recovered inheritance redirected toward their futures. My apartment, once a refuge from family complications, began to display signs of these renewed connections. Children's artwork appeared on my refrigerator. The bookshelf holding my grandmother's first editions also featured framed photos of Tyler, Emma, and Lucas at the Science Museum. My grandmother's letter, finally delivered to me, was framed on my desk, a reminder of her belief in me when others had doubted. At work, I had been promoted to lead a new project. My confidence and assertiveness noted in my performance review. Demonstrate stronger boundaries and clearer communication, my manager had written, unaware of the personal growth that had prompted these professional changes. My mother had moved back home, but with new conditions and expectations. She and my father were attending couples therapy, learning to communicate in healthier ways after decades of dysfunctional patterns. My father's progress was uneven but real. His texts to me awkward but increasingly genuine in their interest about my life. Amanda and Timothy were working on their marriage and their parenting. The promised trip to Disneyland had happened, but as a family vacation focused on connection rather than as a bribe or reward for manipulation. On a cool spring evening, as I prepared for a video call with the kids to help with Emma's new science project, I reflected on the journey of the past several months. The painful Thanksgiving confrontation had been necessary, a lancing of a festering wound that had poisoned family relationships for decades. True healing was a slow process, with setbacks and difficult moments. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or pretending the hurt hadn't happened. It was about creating space for something new to grow, in place of the old patterns. I had set boundaries that were respected. I had claimed my rightful inheritance. Most importantly, I had broken the cycle of manipulation and exclusion that had defined our family dynamics for too long. As the video call connected and the children's excited faces appeared on my screen, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. Standing up for myself hadn't just been about justice or restitution. It had been about creating the possibility for authentic connection, for relationships based on mutual respect rather than control and obligation. "Uncle Norris, look what I made!" Emma exclaimed, holding up a science project model. As I praised her work and answered Tyler's questions about coding, I realized that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for those we love is to demand better from them, to refuse to participate in harmful patterns, even when it means difficult confrontations. True family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about choice, about showing up authentically and allowing others to do the same. It was a lesson I had learned the hard way, but one that had transformed not just my own life, but potentially generations to come. Have you ever had to stand up to family for your own well-being? Sometimes the most difficult confrontations are the ones that lead to the greatest healing. It takes courage to break unhealthy patterns, especially with those closest to us. If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you found value in it. Subscribe for more content about family dynamics and personal growth, and share with someone who might need encouragement to set healthy boundaries. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and wisdom in navigating your own family relationships.